and welcome to a C-Red UK Bulls Blitz. I'm Neill, and as you can see, it's just me today, no Matt. He's already put his two-piece out there already about the Zach Lavine rumours that are ongoing at the moment. I'm sure you've already heard it or read it at this stage. I'm a few hours behind, so I'm just jumping on here to give you my update on how I feel about it and what I think about it. So that way you get both sides of the coin from both Matt and myself. I'm not going to go over the entire release that was put out there by Jake Fischer of Yahoo Sports. Matt's already read it out for you once. I'm sure you've read it yourselves at this stage. But what I do want to say is, you know, you've got to bear in mind that, first of all, we're at that stage of the season where things do get a little bit kind of crazy and rumors do fly around and an awful lot of stuff will come out there. However, we do know that this Bulls team is in a situation, and that situation is that we're tied up with cap space. We don't really have too many places to go in order to improve. Even running it back is financially a problem. So therefore, we do need to start looking at options, and the Bulls front office do need to weigh up every possibility in order to make this team move forwards and not stay where they are, or even worse, get worse than they are. Now, you've got to bear in mind Zach has 4 years left on his contract. He signed the max deal. A lot of people are torn on that. However, personally, I think it had to be done. It was the right thing to do. It proved to Zach that they were serious about him. Then on the flip side, talks of trading him, which have arisen in the past. You know, there was the rumors before about the New York Knicks, and that also has come up again in some of the talks that I've been listening to and some of the stuff that's on the socials. But you've got to bear in mind the situation changed that now. Like before, fair enough, these rumors were going around, and I can understand how they were upsetting Zach, or they were annoying him, making him feel like, you know, are you with me or are you not with me? The fact of the matter is now we have to look at all possible trade options, all possible ways of improving this group. I think it's a good thing that they are finding out his worth, finding out his value. But I don't want it to be at the detriment of Zach and to upset Zach. But at the same time, he is definitely our best trade option. So where do we go with that? I think if you're talking about trading for Scoot, then I totally get it. I mean, we need to look at the future. Zach gives us a medium-term future if you build around Zach. But if you trade Zach and get a new prospect, the likes of which could be technically could be a generational talent, then you need to look at that. You need to look at that. I mean, that is probably our best way of going forward. Now, a lot of people are hung up on the Portland pick, and I can understand why, you know, because we have that history with our picks with Portland. They're looking to free things up to get things moving, and that's something that we can possibly look at. However, there is no guarantee that when you get to the third pick that Scoot's going to be there. I mean, we don't know what Charlotte's going to do at number 2. I mean, I think it's a bit of a lock-in regards to the first pick, right? The Spurs would be crazy not to take Wemby. But the second pick is where we need to be looking, not just the third pick. I mean, obviously, these conversations need to be had. The front office needs to be talking to their front offices, and they need to find out what the likelihood is that Scoot is going to slip to 3. Or is there a possibility that Scoot's going to go at 2? And if that happens, if he's going to go at 2, then we need to make sure that if that's the move we need to make and that's the move they want to make, we are in that conversation. The only way I see to really seriously get that done is by talking about things like trading Zach Lavine. So it makes sense. Do I like it? I'm kind of a bit torn. But at the same time, I see the sense in it. I understand why it's talked about, why this needs to be done. And I hope Zach does too. What I don't want to end up happening is that they do keep Zach, but they've pissed him off so much that he starts talking about wanting to go. That's not an ideal situation to be in. But understanding his value around the league, that is something that they need to do. So if Zach does go, where does that leave us? Well, as far as I'm concerned, if Zach goes for Scoot, you're talking about pretty much a rebuild then. I don't see too much point in keeping DeMar on the books at that stage. What you're talking about then is you're talking about rebuilding for and around Scoot. You need some young talent But you also need some experience there that's going to help him come up along, even though I don't think it's going to take too many seasons before he finds his feet, if not immediately. So what we're talking about doing there then is getting rid of DeMar, potentially signing and trading Vooch, and building some core around Scoot to make that happen in the coming years moving forward. If they decide to trade Zach somewhere else, not make it for a move for Scoot, but trade him for maybe a big package, something like was discussed before and has risen again from the Knicks, where you're talking about an RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Derrick Rose kind of a move, and maybe potentially picks. If that's going to happen, well, then you're talking about blowing it up altogether. I mean, you bring that talent in and you're trying to work it around the whole team, or are you going to try and work it around a player? And who is that player going to be? Because if you're telling me that that player is going to be DeMar or Vooch, I'm not so sure that's going to work. And then one of those players that's coming in, I mean, they're not really players that I would consider to be 1A players that you could build a team around. So then you're talking about a team of role players, which has been known to work. But I think you need to be seriously considering having that 1A player. And if you're getting rid of Zach, well, you're getting rid of that 1A player. So you're talking about, at that stage, you're talking about blowing it up entirely. You could be looking at a long stretch. You could be looking at a long time before you get back to relevancy again. And it was a long time coming in the first place. So this may not necessarily be something that I'm excited about, unless the pieces are right. And unless you're getting a player that could potentially become your 1A player moving forward. If Zach stays, I think it's time to, if you pardon the phrase, but shit or get off the pot. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, you know, we've had Zach now for a number of years, and he's always been that, is he the 1A player, isn't he? I mean, when Larry was there, we were talking about, would it be Zach or would it be Larry? It turned out it was Zach, and Larry didn't work out for us, but that's another story. Then we were talking about, well, is DeMar the 1A or is Zach the 1A? Is it a 1-2 punch? Where does that leave us? And, you know, Zach hasn't really had that opportunity to be the guy in Chicago with a team built around him. He has been the guy when he first came here, perhaps, but at that stage, the team around him just wasn't right. And we need to think about, okay, Zach's going to be our future. Zach's going to be what we want to build around moving forward. If that's the case, we need to look at getting rid of DeMar. Again, I know I feel like I'm always talking about getting rid of DeMar, and I do like DeMar, don't get me wrong. I really like him as a player. I love what he's done for the Bulls, but I just think it's time. So get rid of DeMar, bring something in, build around Zach. Zach needs someone who can hold the ball. Zach needs someone who can control the floor. He had that for a short time when we had Lonzo, and look at the difference it made. It made a massive, massive difference. The problem with DeMar is he holds the ball a lot, to the point where, you know, it's too much. He runs the time down, he crawls the ball in slowly, and he clogs up the inside. And we don't need that. We need spacing. We need a drive lane for Zach, and we also need to be able to pop the ball back out. Now, that leads me to the next thing that we need, and we all know this at this stage. We've all been harping on about this for long enough. We need shooting. I do think it's a good thing that we've now talked about getting in Peter Patton, and we're going to have internal development working on shooting, something that should have been there all along, and unfortunately it was not, but it's there now. So let's hope that that can help to internally improve the shooting situation, and that's also a good, cheap way to do that. But if we're talking about building around Zach, I think we need to maybe bring in at least one key shooter from distance and then build around him that way. We also need to realize the fact that, you know, Vooch is an average defender. Zach is improving on the defense, but he's not some defensive stalwart. So we need to talk about building some sort of defensive capability within the team. Kobe showed leaps and bounds last season, and hopefully that can continue. Hopefully we're going to see a bit more of Dalen as Dalen starts to develop more, and he seems to be a bit of a defensive threat. And we do need to bring in somebody else to work alongside the likes of AC, who is the absolute pivotal piece of our defense. I think if you strengthen the defense, you put a shooter and a ball handler around Zach, this could be a very different team. That's kind of what I want to do with it. And, you know, That's my personal opinion. I think if you can get Scoot, you do it however you have to do it. If that means sacrificing Zach, sacrifice Zach. I won't like it at the time, but I do think it's the right move going forward. If you can't guarantee that you're going to get Scoot, it's time to rebuild, retool, and build around Zach. That's my take. Let me know what you think. Send us your comments. Check us on all the socials and creduk.com, where you'll get all of our blogs and writings, and you'll be able to keep up with the weekly bulletin there by Matt. Hopefully you'll tune into our next episode. Should be coming at you next week. And in the meantime, see red, go Bulls, and remember, it's a Chicago Bulls day.